PRX.
Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you're in the U.S., this is a little bit of a seasonal episode for you, an all-intro episode. But wherever you are in the world, I'm thankful I get to make this show and keep you company in the deep, dark night. It really is something I'm so thankful for. If you're thankful for these all-intro episodes, this will be intro after intro after intro. To soothe you through this holiday week. Thanks, and good night, everybody. All right, everybody, it's Scoots here. I want to talk about sleep phones, the most comfortable way to listen to Sleep With Me. Sleep phones, a soft, stretchy headband where you can listen to Sleep With Me in your bed. You won't wake up your partner. You can bring it with you when you travel. So if you're visiting someone over the holidays, what an amazing gift are Sleep With Me branded sleep phones. And the only way we get credit and the only way you can get Sleep With Me branded sleep phones, or even if you choose another model, is to use our link, sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep phones. Oh boy, but right now through November 29th is the Black Friday sale, so you could save even more. Maybe get some sleep phones wireless, or the sleep phones with wireless charging, because you get 20% off everything excluding gift cards between now and November 29th if you use the code Cheerful20. That's one word, Cheerful20, and use our link. Otherwise we don't get credit, and you won't be able to find those Sleep With Me branded sleep phones at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep phones and use Cheerful20. Support for Sleep With Me comes from Odoo. If you feel like you're wasting your time and money with your current business software, or just want to know what you could be missing, then you need to join the millions of other users who switched to Odoo. Odoo is the affordable all-in-one management software with a library of fully integrated business applications that help you get more done in less time for a fraction of the price. To learn more, visit odoo.com/withme. That's odoo.com/withme. Odoo, modern management made simple. All right, everybody, it is time to talk about Helix Sleep, and they've got an amazing Black Friday sale. Which one's best for you? Have you taken that quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep? Because Helix has over 20 unique mattresses, including the award-winning Luxe Collection and the newly released Helix Elite Collection. They've got a mattress for big and tall sleepers, even a mattress made just for kids. And how will you know which Helix mattress works best for you and your body? Take the Helix Sleep quiz and find the perfect mattress in under 2 minutes. And then your personalized mattress is shipped straight to your door or free of charge. Helix knows there's no better way to test out a new mattress than by sleeping on it in your own home. That's why they offer a 100-night free trial and a 10 to 15-year warranty to try out your new Helix mattress. Everybody's unique. Everybody sleeps differently. That's why Helix has several different mattress models to choose from, each designed for specific sleep positions and feel preferences. There's models with memory foam for optimal pressure relief if you sleep on your side, models with more responsive foam to cradle your body for essential support in stomach and back sleeping positions. Like I said, when I took that Helix quiz years ago, I got matched with the Helix Dusk Luxe, and I love my mattress. I can't say enough about it. I sleep on my side, I sleep on my stomach. It keeps me cool, and it keeps me comfortable. It keeps me cozy in the cozy season. And not only is it the best mattress I've ever slept on, but the setup was fast and easy. Helix mattresses are shipped in a box straight to your door for free. Plus, Helix mattresses all come with a 10 or 15-year warranty depending on the model. And here's the thing, Helix is offering 25% off all mattress orders and a free sleep bundle for our listeners in honor of Black Friday. The bundle includes 2 free pillows as well as a set of sheets and even a mattress protector. Holy cow, is that a deal? Go to helixsleep.com/sleep and use code HelixPartner25. This is the best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now. Do not miss out on this deal, I'm telling you. All right, everybody, it is time for the Sleepy Supporter Zone. These are like those of you that love listening to this ad-supported version for free linearly. I know you're thankful for the people that are able to support the sponsors so we can keep doing this. So we celebrate them here. Because not only do they support the sponsors, they let the sponsors know about it. They post on social media. That really, really helps us keep sponsors, find new sponsors, and keep the show coming out for you for free. So I wanted to thank Kate, who got a Helix Helix Plus. Let Helix know about it. Let me know about it. Kate was excited too. So it's so fun because like all these sponsors, it's stuff I use on a regular basis. So I'm so happy that Kate's got that mattress. And thank you, Kate, for letting me know about it. If you want to be like Kate and get on the Sleepy Supporter Zone, support a sponsor, even a free trial, check it out and let me know about it. Let them know about it. Fill out the form at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sponsors. Thank you, Kate. The second part of the Sleepy Supporter Zone is you getting the support you need right now. If you're in need of extra resources, there's links to those resources in the show notes, including international resources you can connect with right now. And it's about being part of our communities, being a part of positive change, not just saying Black Lives Matter, not just saying stop AAPI hate, not just saying support Ukraine. And people have been asking about my wish list. You know, the organizations we've been supporting over the past year, including my own personal support, is hand in hand. The Midnight Mission. Midnight Mission also has an Amazon wish list and the Trevor Project. So if you want to support one of those organizations, that would be a gift to me. But it'll also be a gift to you and a gift to our communities that we're a part of. So be a part of positive change. Feel how good it feels to take action and use the links to those organizations in our show notes. And that's it. What do you say we, Mystery Bard. A lot of people help out in this show. Holy mackerel. I couldn't do this alone. Mystery Bard?
Posty poster son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the mystery bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Anna like banana. Leah does the transcripts.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. Don't forget, get your sleep phones. Sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep phones is the only way to get Sleep With Me branded sleep phones, only way we get credit. Most comfortable way to listen to Sleep With Me. Sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep phones. What do you say we slow it down and get on with the show? Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn out the light. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, press it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a safe place. Like I got it. I'm smoothing it. I'm patting it. I'm rubbing it down. I'm clearing it out. I'm cleaning it up. Holy cow, polished and waxed. But plenty of traction. Don't worry, everything's polished and waxed, but it's also polished and waxed in a matte way. Then what I'll do is I'll try to invite you in and make it feel welcoming or send it to you. And one of the ways I send it to you is by sending my voice across the deep dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. So I got creaky dulcet tones. It's like creaky like a door. Dulcet's kind of not, you say, in my case, it's like, it's not bad. Dulcet, I guess you could say that. Creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I already have a couple superfluous tangents because when I started the show, I was thinking that, I said trouble. I thought I said trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep, but I think I said tribble. And then I realized this will be a TNG episode, which I don't know if there's ever been a TNG episode with tribbles, but there was a Star Trek, original Star Trek, one of the more famous ones that even non-Star Trek people know about are the tribbles. And I'm pretty sure the title of that episode was Trouble with Tribbles, which is funny to say. It feels good to say. Go ahead, trouble with tribbles. Trouble with tribbles. I dribble when I say trouble with tribbles. I actually don't. So please don't quibble. And tribbles, please don't nibble. If I couldn't laugh and I couldn't giggle, I would gibble. Anyway, so I'll go off. I'll talk more about tribbles maybe in a minute. Tribbles getting to sleep. That's a peaceful image. I mean, if it weren't for their multiplication, a triple-based bed, a TBB. Was there ever like a Star Trek, maybe a fan fiction where someone said, okay, we've found a way to control tribble, whatever they call it, tribble offspringing, procreate. I don't know if they're procreating or they're just, whatever they call that, like dividing. So I probably shouldn't, so what if you had a TBB, a triple-based bed made up of sleeping tribbles? Somehow, totally like 100% we keep the tribbles' care in mind within the invention because it is imaginary at this point. Only a prototype, a fictional prototype right now. But it's a tribble-based bed, like kind of like those air beds where you say, well, I need some more tribbles. So you hit a button and the tribbles multiply or subdivide, whatever they're doing. You say, oh, that's a little bit more tribbly. And you say, is tribbly firm or soft? You say, well, you have to try it for yourself. You say, well, that's a little bit too much tribble for me. Too much tribble for my taste. And you say, okay, just hit that other button. And they say, well, what happens when you hit that button? You say, well, there's less tribbles in your bed. And you say, well, yeah, how's that possible? You say, oh, well, it's, they go to another bed. According to the manual, the tribbles go to another bed somewhere else. Because this is in the future, this is in Star Trek. So there's actually one of those miniature thingamajigs that, it's either a replicator or like a holodeck of tribbles. So tribbles rematerized, I guess, in this case, or transported to another bed sounds better. Or maybe even not even that. Like the tribbles take breaks. So that's the way we keep our tribbles fresh and happy. The tribbles actually like being a part of a bed when they're sleeping. So we have tribbles at different planets at different hours. And when you press that button or whatever, the tribbles are constantly cycling in and out at a speed that you're not even aware of. By miniature transporter. We're beyond the Star Trek shows you've seen. We've miniaturized transportation, transporting. And there's much less energy in our energizing. And so, yeah, we can constantly be cycling the tribbles in and out for total tribble and human comfort or whatever whatever planet you're from. You have a little more, have a little less. The tribble bed. Sleep yourself in a bed of tribbles. Available today in many forms and, oh boy, is it customizable. So I guess I went on that tangent early. I was going to say, if you're new, a little late for this, I guess, welcome. I'm glad you're here. This podcast is a little bit different, I guess, as you've already seen. Where I have a tendency to go off topic and never get to the point. But so a few things to know if you're new. One, that reaction is common. If it's skepticism, doubt, not sure if you're comfortable, or you're like feeling like, I don't know what this is. So those are really common reactions to the show. And most regular listeners say, hey, give it a few tries. That's definitely the way most of us came to the show. And you could check our reviews. Almost every review says something like that. And they say, okay, well, it took a few tries to realize, one, this is a podcast you don't really listen to. You kind of barely listen. I mean, that was a pretty good example. You say, well, the idea of a triple-based bed, I can't see how that idea would pop into anyone's head, but I can see that it popped into your head. And it seems like a reasonable idea to you, Scoots. And to you, it probably feels like groundbreaking. I totally can see that. But I know I don't really have to pay too much attention to someone that I'm glad you think that way, and I appreciate it. But I also realize by listening to you that not only do I not need to listen to you, you also constantly give me permission not to listen to you or pay attention. And so I can hold those two things and also be relieved by the fact that if I don't pay attention, I mean, I might miss out on, triple-based buying, TBBBO, triple-based bed buying opportunity. But since that was imaginary and fictional and a bit different, I can live with. I'd rather get some sleep than miss out on my TBBB triple based. So T based triple based bed buying. So triple-based bed. So TBBB. Oh, that's sorry. I want to get my B's in order. Can't put too many triples out there. It'll crush our margins. Holy moly. You get too many triples in that bed or in the triple-based buying opportunity. And that blows everything. That blows the bottom line right out the door. You bet your bottom dollar, triples. Do triples have a bottom? Okay, so back to the show. It's a little bit different, and you don't need to listen to me. So if you're skeptical or wondering, just give the show a few tries. It takes a few tries to get used to. And you don't need to like me initially. You just have to kind of feel, just kind of feel neutral or say, well, I'm not exactly open-minded about this podcast, but I'm willing to look at it in a fuzzy and out-of-focused way. And I can agree to barely pay any attention to you, Scoots. I think I could do that. And just see how it goes. So that's one thing. Podcasts you don't need to listen to. Other thing is this is a sleep podcast, and we're kind of like one of the first sleep podcasts around. But this is the one sleep podcast, not only the OS, the original sleep podcast, it is also the only sleep podcast that's not here to put you to sleep. I'm here to keep you company while you drift off. As you fall asleep, I'm here to take your mind off of stuff and be here to keep you company even when you're sleeping. But also if you can't sleep, either because of a long-term thing or a situational thing, or you need a break during the day, or you woke up, I'll be here to the very end to keep you company. So podcast you don't need to listen to, podcast that's not really here to put you to sleep. I'm here to walk at your side as you drift away off to dreamland. I'm here to hold your thoughts or your feelings or your the tension of those parts of you. So that's that. A structure of the show can throw people off. A little late to tell you this because we're already, but the show starts off with a greeting. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends beyond the binary. Then there's business. That business keeps the podcast free and not as a part of another service. Then there's an intro. So around minute 6 or so, 4 to 6 minutes, maybe, I don't know. The intro starts and probably runs to like somewhere around 20 to 22 minutes. And the intro is me introducing the podcast at first, seemingly in an incompetent way. You'd say, and many people have that only listened once. They only listened to the first 18 minutes of the show. And they point this out. Now, I'm laughing because they miss the paradox of making a sleep podcast. But you say, it takes you 24 minutes to introduce a sleep podcast? And I say, exactamundo, as the Fonz might say, or somebody, because, let me explain it to you. One, if you're new, I want to explain what the podcast is, but I also want to give you some examples, 100% planned out, of like, triple-based beds. There's a tangent we can all agree on is somewhat distracting. So if you're new, it gives you an idea what the podcast is and an idea of the level of, positive incompetence and goofiness to expect. But if you're a regular listener, you have a couple choices. About 2% of regular listeners skip ahead and they start the show 20 or 22 minutes. And then about 2% of listeners, less than that, but around that, support the show on Patreon and might listen to like story-only episodes, or they listen in different ways that are available to the patrons. And then the other 96% of listeners, they listen to the intro in a few different ways, and there's no wrong way to do it. So these are just a few examples. There's listeners that start the podcast as they're getting ready for bed. There's listeners that start the podcast as they're getting in bed and they're getting comfortable. And then there's the listeners that start the podcast as they're drifting off. And then there's listeners that start the podcast when they wake up. Those are just a few of the more popular ways to listen. And for a lot of those listeners, whenever you start listening, whether it's before you brush your teeth, or when you're already in bed and you're getting cozy. The podcast is kind of meant to be like a landing strip to let things slowly drift away, to slowly ease you into sleep and bedtime. And so an intro that never really gets going, or it gives you plenty of time to start to get comfortable and unwind, or maybe do part of your other bedtime routine, doodling. I don't know. Does anybody, is there a pastime called noodling where you would, not with noodles? I mean, I was thinking with pool noodles. You say, well, no. I don't even have, you see, you got a bedroom full of pool noodles, Bob? And Bob says, oh, yeah. Oh, boy, this is my hobby. This is my hobby room, too. So, yeah, I got a bedroom full of pool noodles. Well, what's going on in here? How about, Bob says, no, I'm a noodler. And I say, oh, boy, Bob, do I really want? And you say, yeah, well, like at bedtime, I find pool noodles soothing. So I'll shape them in temporary shapes, or I'll just squeeze them. Or I'll pretend, I'm a trumpeter and trumpet into my pool noodle. Or I'll put my ear to my pool noodle and listen, or I'll sing my pool noodle a song. I decorate pool noodles. I've gotten into, sculpting pool noodles. That's my next thing. So that's what I'm going to make it, this is going to be a new thing one day. Sculpted pool noodles. You say, well, that one looks like a little bit like Beaker. And you say, yeah, that's the only character I've been able to figure out is Beaker from the Muppets. No other, I haven't been able to do any other, but yeah, that's one of the characters I do, Beaker. You say, oh boy, that's interesting, Bob. But believe it or not, I was in the middle, so that's another thing you could do while you listen to the intro is work with your noodles. If that was your hobby, and there'd be nothing, Bob, that's nothing wrong with that. There's got to be a hobby for everybody. Do you bend them like you're a strong person at this, like a circus? Oh, of course I do. That's good. Thanks for coming on, Bob. Thanks for having me, Scoots. Also, can I order one of those triple-based beds? We're not quite, science is not caught up with my vision yet, Bob, but one day, fingers crossed, Roddenberry's crossed, we'll get there. Thanks, Scoots. So the intro, you could fall asleep during it, or it could slowly help you drift away. And I will posit, if you're new, that maybe that took your mind off or whatever else. That's kind of my job with these tangents, is to lay the groundwork. But the show is also an hour, so you have plenty of time to fall asleep. So you say, well, if the intro is 4 minutes, I might feel some pressure to fall asleep. Or if the episodes are only 30 minutes, I might say, this is me kind of trying to be in your shoes. Say, oh boy, I got to be asleep in 30 minutes. Now sleep with me. Plenty of time. Over 300 episodes ready to go. So those are the kind of things then there'll be some business. Still talking about the structure. Then there's some business. Then we'll talk about Star Trek: The Next Generation. Then there's thank yous at the end of the show. So that's the structure of the show. The reason I make the show is because I believe you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve a place of respite and solace. You deserve a bedtime that you can look forward to, or at least to feel neutral about and not dread, as if I've been in that position before. So, where I'm not looking forward to bedtime because I don't know what's going to happen. And having sleep with me is a part of another, is one part of your routine with noodling or whatever. I hope that can bring you something nice at bedtime. I was going to say some niceness. And then I heard my daughter correcting me in my mind. So I said something nice. And so then, I don't know. So that's it. I make the show because I've been there and I know how it feels and I want something more for you. And while this show does not work for everybody, unfortunately, I wish it did. I hope you give it a few tries, and I really hope I can help. I really appreciate you coming by and checking the podcast out. And I yearn and I strive to help you fall asleep. So thanks again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we're able to bring you this podcast for free. All right, everybody, it is time to talk about our newest sponsor, Wild Health, because, everybody's unique. And when I go to a doctor, I don't want to get just generalized advice. I don't want to just be a person on a checklist, right? And that's why I'm so excited to talk about today's sponsor, Wild Health. It was founded by 2 ER physicians, and Wild Health takes a proactive and preventative approach to healthcare called precision medicine. They use your genetics, biometrics, and lifestyle data to help you determine what your body needs so you can function at your best now and in the long run. Wild Health can determine if you have elevated levels that can contribute to a wide range of current or potential issues, like brain fog or drowsiness during the workday, microbiome and gut health issues, indicators for diabetes or prediabetes. And once identified, 89% of Wild Health patients showed improvements with these challenges. And that's the kind of powerful info you can get from Wild Health. I am so excited. I'm waiting for my kit to come. On Friday, I'm going in to get the process started because I want to know more. That's how I get peace of mind, is having all the facts for me and my body. And Wild Health will be there to help me along the way. Because whether you have a specific health goal like weight loss, body composition, improved energy, or you more broadly want to optimize your health and prevent disease, Wild Health tailors a care plan with lifestyle-first interventions, and that's going to help me live longer and better. To help you implement your individualized care plan, Wild Health pairs each person with a care team consisting of a board-certified precision medicine physician and an accredited health coach who you can message anytime through their convenient app. Plus, Wild Health is fully virtual via telemedicine and is available to everyone, everywhere in the U.S. Wild Health is generously extending Sleep With Me listeners 20% off the cost of membership with code SLEEPWITHME. Head over to wildhealth.com/sleepwithme and use code SLEEPWITHME at checkout. Make this commitment to yourself and start taking control of your health today at wildhealth.com/sleepwithme. So get over there. Thanks, everybody. Sleep With Me is brought to you by Progressive. Most of you aren't just listening right now. You're driving, cleaning, and even exercising. But what if you could be saving money by switching to Progressive? Drivers who save by switching save nearly $750 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Multitask right now. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. And what I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature. So, things on your mind, that's one thing that keeps me up. Thoughts that I have about past, present, future, or indeterminate time periods. So thoughts, feelings, anything physical coming up for you or emotionally. Changes in temperature, that happens to me a lot, or it can happen to everybody. You could have, you could be on the road. You could be someone that works, second, third shift. Maybe they've invented at your workplace. But great news, everybody, gather round. We here at, whatever enterprises have invented a 4th shift. That's even less, so my podcast could help you with that. You say, okay, well, I thought. You see, I'll help you adjust. We'll get the curtains, you get scoots on, and I'll help carry you off into dreamland. It could be something else, but whatever's keeping you awake, I'm here to take your mind off of that. I got a safe place set up here, set aside. Can also be instantly delivered to you, accessible accessible or accessible, whichever you prefer, nuclear, whatever you say, any of those things. It's the podcast. You could have it whenever you need it. It's here for you. And then what I do is I send my voice across the deep, dark night, use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. Oh, so creaky are my dulcets. You say, well, I'm not sure how do you describe Scoots' voice? You say, well, it's not like anything I've really heard before. I mean, you've heard it before. And have you ever driven through a bog or near a bog before? Or the sound aging trees make in the wind? I think that was once a what are those things called? Those short poems with syllables in them. Sometimes my brain also blanks out. I say that was part of it. I was going to say a soliloquy, but I almost had it, and then it vanished again from my brain. But yeah, the sound of an aging tree and a strong wind. That's what that's say, what does creaky dulcet mean to you? I'd say, well, it's actually not bad. And the reason I say this, because that's not bad if you're kicking back somewhere and listening to that in the right place. There's other ways you say, okay, well, I'm comfortable. I kind of like the sound of that tree. If I was trying to take the SAT or something, or, concentrate on, I'm not necessarily going to listen to it at that moment. But at bedtime. So I'm going to send my voice, creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. You've already got a little taste of those. I'm going to go off topic. I'm going to get mixed up. I'm going to use, not only am I going to use filler words, I'll probably get caught up in filler words. But, pauses that are not pregnant with meaning. They're precognition, but they really are. I don't know. It's maybe not. They're decognition, or it's like when you're trying to start a thought. So pre-ignition. You say, I wonder if this brain's going to start on me right now. Those are what some of the pauses in the podcast say. Like before anybody that's had a car, this has been an experience with a lot of vehicles I've owned. Did you know once upon a time, kids, cars used to start with keys and not buttons? And I guess with the button, it kind of takes out the button. They said the car's manufacturer said, let's give them a little less. We've given them, these car drivers, way too much control, and they've just run rampant with it, driving around everywhere. So let's just give them a button and see. I wonder if there's someone doing studies of that. But so back when you had a car and if you were in a position like I've been in at times, it's like you're not 100% sure your car's going to start. Before you turn the key, sometimes you talk to your higher power, sometimes you mutter, or your lower power or whatever, your base power. That's what I've been in touch with. Holy moly. But a lot of times you just pause there. And that's kind of what it is when I pause in this podcast. I wonder if my brain's actually going to start up with some new thoughts. And I'm always trying to start my brain up and wind it to help you wind down. If you're new, welcome. Thanks for coming by. Sorry it took so long to say hello. Come on in. If you're new and skeptical or doubtful or unsure, that totally makes sense. I mean, why wouldn't you be? Here I am with a person, first of all, you say, you're the first person I met with a brain that needs a key to start it up. And I say, yeah, and believe me, I'm not even sure what kind of starter they gave me. So yeah, I don't have a button. A lot of people have that, the old button brain, built-in button. You just think of something, poofy poo, it's there. My creaky dulcet tones do sound a bit like a car trying to get started. Because the same thing. See, how many times are you going to talk about this? How many ways can I talk about this analogy? I don't know. So if you're new, here's a couple things to know. If you're skeptical or doubtful, a lot of listeners, I don't even know, like millions, hundreds of thousands, I don't know, came to this show very doubtful too, very skeptical. And probably, like, I don't know what percentage of them headed back off that way. But actually, millions have stayed, too. So they said, hey, like this podcast, I'm going to give it a second or third try. Suddenly, they said, this is great. This is right what I'm looking for. It's something I don't really have to listen to. It's there for me to listen to, but I don't have to listen to it or engage it with my full attention. It's intended to put me to sleep, but also be barely listened to. And that took me a few tries I'm just generalizing what I hear from listeners. It took me a few times to understand that, I could listen to Scoots or I could barely listen to Scoots. It's going to make the same amount of sense. If I try to really listen, though, I'm not sure it'll work. So kind of give it a few tries when you first get here, but realize you don't need to listen. There's also no pressure to fall asleep. I'm here to keep you company, essentially, as you drift off, which is a little different approach than most things. A lot of things are intended to just put you to sleep. Here I am. I'll take your mind off stuff, keep you company, be in the vicinity of your bedside or wherever you're snoozing, and, keep you occupied, just barely. And the reason the episodes are about an hour is so you have plenty of time, or alternatively, if you can't sleep, you got somebody here for you. You say, okay, well, at least I got Scoots to talk to me about some stuff. So those are a couple of things to know. Other things, if you're new, that can throw a new listener off. I want to give you as many heads up as I can. They always come too late. So the thing is, this podcast does not work for everybody. I said that, structurally, this is definitely, where the show deviates from norm. The show starts off with business. That's really how we keep it free for everybody. It's not free to make or distribute the show, but I want it to be free for anybody that wants it. And we do that between listener support and advertiser support. So, I don't know, that's something I'm actually very proud of, because the people that benefit from the show help keep it there for anybody else that's not in a position to do that, or that just, that you don't need to. So that's the business, but that's only like about 4 or 5 minutes. Then there's about 18 minutes or so of me just talking, which I think we're about 6 minutes into that, where I just kind of introduce the podcast, and then I get distracted. Then I go back to introducing the podcast. We've seen that so far in the last few minutes. Then I'll start talking about something else. Then I'll go back to introducing the podcast. And eventually, around 20 minutes or so, the intro will end, and then we'll have some business. And then I'll tell you a bedtime story. So you could skip ahead to 20 minutes. What I would recommend is listening to the podcast a few times to see how it works for you, because most listeners listen to the intro. Some of those listeners are listening as they're getting ready for bed, or some listeners are listening as they're in bed and falling asleep. So some people fall asleep during the intro, but most listeners kind of listen to the intro. That's why it's like 15 to 20 minutes to wind down. Let the day fade away behind you. And just listen to old Scoots Magoots as I make up my own goofy names, here to keep you company. And then the show ends with some thank yous. So that's the structure of the show. Podcast you don't need to listen to. No pressure to fall asleep. I make the show because I've been there. I've been there tossing and turning, mind racing, trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, trouble getting up. How about this one? Getting up too early. So here's my situation right now. I say my daughter doesn't have school this week when I'm recording this, so I don't need to get up at my usual very early time anyway. So here's what my brain decides. Let's get up 15 minutes earlier than our alarm would go off, just naturally. And I say, well, but I'm going to bed like 40 minutes later, so what's up with that? My brain, that part of me says, I don't know, just woke up. And I said, well, can I get to bed? Well, you could try to get back to sleep. Yeah, you don't even have an alarm set, huh? So that's what I'm dealing with this week. But I'm dealing with it. I said, maybe I'll take a nap. I don't know. Maybe I got enough sleep anyway. Maybe I'll try to go to bed earlier. But I make the show because I've been there in all those situations, and it's frustrating, right? You can probably hear it in my voice, even though that one is like not as bad as not being able to fall asleep or waking up. Whatever it is that's going on with you, it's important. And it's not allowing you to get the sleep you need. And what I believe is you do deserve a good night's sleep. And not only that the world will be a better place with you rested in it. Your world, your personal world will be better. You'll probably be better equipped with everything you come in contact with. And that does, it's not trite to say it. Like, that makes the entire world a better place. And opportunity for you to flourish, having a reliable place of rest. That's really what we want. Isn't that what we all want? And that's what I want for you. Now, the catch with this show is that it just doesn't work for everybody. If this show even worked for like 50% of the people who listen to it, like I would actually already have like some proxy doing this show. I would be on a yacht somewhere. So I do wish it worked for everybody. It's just this show's a little bit different. If it doesn't work for you, test out different stuff. I like a 2-fan, I have an air purifier that's pretty loud when it's on high, and a box fan. That's one thing I try. Then I'll try something else, and I'll try an app. I'll listen to an empty bowl, or, try to test out another sleep podcast, or I'll meditate, or I'll go for a walk. I'll sit outside. But hopefully Sleep With Me can become your bedtime, your bore friend. That's really the role I'm applying for. Your bore bud, your bore sib, your bore bae, your bore bestie. I'm here to keep you company and be at your side. I don't know. That's pretty much it. Usually these intros kind of go into a much longer ramble, but I really just want to help you fall asleep if I can. So if you like, give it a few tries and see how it goes, because I really appreciate you checking the show out. I appreciate your time. I work hard, and I yearn and I strive to help you fall asleep. And here's a couple of ways we're able to keep this podcast free for everybody. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. It could be thoughts, things you're thinking about, things on your mind, feelings. So any emotions coming up for you related to the feelings or the thoughts, or they're just emoting. They're just there. Or physical sensations. It could be changes in routine or time or temperature. Whatever it is, it could be many, 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 many things. Whatever it is, I'd like to take your mind off of that. What I'm going to do is, what I propose to do is, whatever's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice. Is there another part? Whatever, keep you up at tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting asleep, trouble staying asleep. I can't remember the next part. Forgetfulness, that might keep me up later. Yeah, whatever is keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off that. That's exactly what I'd like to do. I don't think I can do it in a straightforward way. But the way I'm going to do it, and I did get distracted because I was supposed to remember something, and now I can't remember what I was supposed to remember. So I got to apologize to the listener who tried to remind me. Hopefully I'll remember what they told me to remember. But I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use the lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I'm going to go off topic. I'm going to get mixed up and confused. Oh, boy, all of those things. Upcoming on this episode of Sleep With Me. The pointless meanders, creaky, dulcet tones. Holy moly. Superfluous tangents, ideally creating a safe place to take your mind off stuff as you drift off. Now, a few important things to know if you're new. One is, if you're new, is it that this show does not work for everybody. Though there are a few people it has worked for immediately. Like 90% of people say that first 2 or 3 tries they didn't like the show, or they were feeling ambivalent or uncertain or skeptical, or they just weren't into it. And sometimes that's because you have expectations of something different, and sometimes it's because you're just waiting to see what happens, and then the second or third time you realize, well, nothing's really happening. So, like, then you can, so just kind of, so if you're having any of those reactions, it's totally normal. I mean, you say, how many other podcasts have creaky dulcet tones? And you say, I don't know, the Barn Door cast has creaky dulcet tones. The old wooden garage door podcast has them. That one podcast from the swamp, I don't know which one, I can't remember what it's called though. What else? The creaky dulcet cast, actually, they have the sweetest voices, but they talk about, I think that's just a tribute cast. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Okay. What was my point? I don't know about that one either, Scoots. So the first thing to know is, yeah, this podcast does not work for everybody, but for 90% of the people that it worked for, took 2 or 3 tries. Which, that's kind of actually 100% better than most sleep solutions. I'm not trying to brag, but maybe even more than that. I'm not good at math either. Because usually for me, it's the opposite. I try something once and it works, and I try it again, it might work. And then the third time I try it doesn't work anymore. Or whatever the other things, it said, it made me groggy the next day. Or, I woke up, so sleeping actually works the reverse of most sleep solutions. You say, most of the time, the first time it doesn't work. It drives you up a wall. But then the second or third time, it gets more effective. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm laughing, because I didn't realize the irony. Made almost 900 episodes. Or this may even be around 900. I don't even know. So that's pretty funny to me. I'm sorry, but it is. I say, wait a second. This is one of the few sleep solutions that doesn't really work initially, but then it starts to work regularly. So give it a few tries, because there's really no investment other than your time. So just kind of see how it goes. Also, don't try to, this kind of piggybacks on that. Don't try to make sense of it. There's another thing I never thought of that doesn't go with bedtime, but I got to point out, piggybacking. No piggybacking. Well, okay, there are exceptions leading up to bedtime, but we'll get into that. But yeah, give it a few tries, and don't try to figure the podcast out. It's best consumed in a loose, out of focus way, because it doesn't make any sense initially or later on. You say, wow, as soon as I realized it doesn't make any sense, and that if Scoots was heading towards a point, he would go in a different direction. And building on that, it's a podcast you don't need to listen to. You could just barely listen. And it's not so much meant to to put you to sleep as to be here as you fall asleep, to keep you company as you drift off. So it's more of like your bedtime companion. I try to be your bore friend, your bore bae, your bore bud, your bore bestie versus something more grand. But though being a bore bestie, you can't really do better than that, can you? Which is like your best bore friend. Best bore friend. BBF, BBFs, best friends, right? BB. Best, how come isn't there 3 letters in best friend? Best BBF. Don't they say BBF or they just say BF? My best friend. Yeah, I'm your BBF, your best boyfriend. I may be missing something in there, but that's one of the keys to the podcast. So those are a few things to know. The other thing that can throw people off is the structure of the show. And I guess the reason, someone reminded me recently, they were like, Scoots, can you remember to mention in the intro something. And then I said, no problem. I'll tell, you might have to remind me again. And I think it's that some people the podcast works for the first time, but it could be something else. And I'll try to find their email and reread it because, but yeah, do this part of the show could do for everybody because then I don't know. So if you're new, those are for some things to remember. The other thing, if you throw new listeners off, but regular listeners like it, is the structure of the show. So a show starts off with a few minutes show starts off with a greeting, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends beyond the binary. So you know you're welcome here. Then we go into business. That's how we bring the show out twice a week. Then there's an intro, and the intro is around 12 to 18 minutes of me rambling about nothing, but it tries to introduce the podcast to new listeners and give regular listeners a chance to get ready for bed, to get in bed and get comfortable. So, so there's so that's because a lot of new people say, why is the intro so long? It doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? Business the whole time? I say, no. I mean, I guess technically you'd say it's like housekeeping. How come there's no reality Marie Kondo, you got me already. I said, how come there's no reality housekeeping shows? That's what part of my brain said. And now another part of my brain is thinking of 50, I say, okay, this old house, tidying up, all those fixing and remodeling shows. I guess if I had a show, I would combine it with a spiritual show or a values-based show. You should bless this mess. I don't know. Is there a show called that? Because there should be. You say, well, we go to people's house and I don't know what we would do. We'd say, great job. Maybe it would be, we give out rewards for people's houses as they are. Bless this mess. And we fold in a universal message and a universal truth in every episode of dignity, hope, and courage. Bless this mess. Or it could be, we go around, I don't know. So anyway, what does it have to do with anything? So the intro is kind of like this, where I go off topic. So for a new listener, you kind of get an idea of what you're in for. But for a regular listener, they're getting ready for bed, they're winding down, or they're already in bed comfortable. And then about 2% of listeners skip the episode. Maybe this is another thing some people have to remind me of. There's actually more than 2% of people that listen during the day or listen to the whole episodes to relax or for a little break or whatever. And then there's the people that can't sleep. So this is actually that's the other thing about the show, why it's an hour. If you can't sleep, I'm here to keep you company. And also to remind you that there's no pressure to fall asleep. So that's the intro. Then there's some business. Then there'll be our episodically modular serial series, Otter Things, OTTERTHINGS, about Emma Otter and her friends. Real nice, real nice series. And then there'll be some thank yous and stuff. So that's the structure of the show. There's no need to listen, no pressure to fall asleep. And there's a reason I make the show. And the reason I make the show is twofold. One, you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve a place of respite where you can relax and feel good. And two, I've been there. I know how it feels. Tossing and turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep, all those things. And I want to help if I can. And then I guess I mentioned piggybacking at bedtime, but I guess I guess there's the picturesque piggybacking, which would be either I don't even know what it came up with that term. It sounds like a problematic term to me, to be honest, but you could be the carrier and you're carrying someone into bed and you're saying, hey, toss you into bed now, have fun, you're nighty poo. Or you're the gleeful youngster. Believe me, I'll get into it could be two grown adults, and it could be part of your, operational procedures, your warm up. So that's different. But this one would be you say, oh, fun, I can't wait to go to sleep. But I guess that's the only time it'd be good. So I guess piggybacking is like more like getting ready for bed, because you couldn't really piggyback someone in bed. It'd be counterproductive, because you say, well, my back's tired. Why can't I just put you down? You're already in your bed. But maybe it's like an extended, well, I just want to hold on to your back while you read me a bedtime story. Say, okay, fair enough. I get it. So I guess that didn't really go anywhere. You can't go very far piggybacking anyway. I mean, unless you're like someone that's in phenomenal shape. Even then, I don't know. So, okay, so that's about it. I mean, I guess that's everything. I'm glad you're here. Give the show a few tries. I just really hope it can help you. I mean, that's why I make the show. But I appreciate you coming by and checking the podcast out. And I really, yearn and I strive. I really want to help you fall asleep. Thanks again. And here's a couple ways we're able to bring this podcast twice a week. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, you're thinking about, thoughts on your mind, or, I guess could be other thoughts. So whatever you're thinking about, thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, whatever's going on, a second, third shift, you could be on call. Stuff could be just, stuff, holy stuff, STUFF. I'd like to read it in reverse. When I think about some of the stuff that keeps me up at night, I'd spell stuff backwards, but I drop one of the F's, and then whatever comes after the U, like the T and the S too. Yeah. You don't need to talk, but just sometimes. But I'm here. I already got lost. What am I going to do? What am I doing? Oh, I was saying the stuff that keeps us up at night. Yeah, I was kind of, no, I'm not really. I'm just being facetious. I know it's not your fault. You're keeping me up at night. It's just a thing. But so, yeah, I'm here to try to do it with kindness, a little bit of silliness. So what I'm going to do is I got this safe place carved out, set aside. It's palatial. I don't know if I've used the word palatial on this podcast before. Makes me think of the palatial podcast I haven't started. The podcast about palatial places and things palatial and things interesting to palatialists. The palatial notes. The podcast about palatial people, palatial. What about palatial people? Are those people that live in palaces or palatial-like, build palatial-like places? Are all palaces palatial? No. Are all palatial places palaces? No. Don't put the P in the palace, though. I mean, unless you're in the right room, okay? But please, but what was I talking about? Oh, I'm going to create this safe place. I got to set aside. Maybe we'll go back to, I love saying palatial. It's like palladium, which I think is like a new, thing. Well, anyway, okay, so, or velodrome. I don't know why velodrome just popped in my head, too. So I'm going to create a safe place. I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I'm going to go off a topic and do those extra words, mumbles. You saw one of those tangents, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents, all in an effort to keep you company while you drift off. If you're new, a couple of things you might want to know right up front. One, this is a podcast to keep you company as you drift off. I tend to, I think I said that. I'm extra mixed up today, which is a good thing in this podcast. But so if you're new, here's a couple of things to know. One, this podcast doesn't work for everybody. So, kind of just see how it goes. It doesn't necessarily have to work for, just kind of look at it loosely, like if you were studying a cloud Or if someone was listed, like, here's the thing, like, if you have more than one palace or palatial, if you have a palatial estate, and you start talking about it, like, I'm probably going to start to tune you out. I mean, maybe, like, and that's just for my own, since I don't have a palatial estate, you say, well, yeah, then we have the picnic area. Then we have the picnic zone. Then we have the water play area. Then the water park. And I say, sorry, you have a water park at your palatial estate? Well, it wouldn't be palatial, would it, Then we have the water gardens, which are really nice. So at some point, I would probably tune you out. Or, you'd see steam coming out my ears. And I would be green with envy. I'd probably be red with envy, not green with envy. But so this podcast is very similar to that. Like, for some people, there is steam coming out their ears. Sorry about that. It's just not for everybody. But for a lot of people, you could just start to tune me out. That's what the regular listeners do. If you're new, you might be paying attention. You say, what is up with all these people that listen to this show? Because he doesn't talk about anything or get to any points. And the regular listeners would giggle along with that. And they'd say, yeah, but he doesn't. That's why we love old Scoots. So that's, so don't pay attention to the show. Barely listen to it. But I will say that most listeners say it takes 2 or 3 tries to get used to the show. So give it 2 or 3 tries and just kind of see how it goes and then see, okay, well, this kind of barely worked for me. So that's one thing to know. The next thing to know, so consume the podcast loosely. The other thing is there's a lot of podcasts to put people to sleep out there or other sleep solutions and stuff like this. This is the only podcast that's kind of here while you fall asleep. I'm here to keep you company as you drift off. I'm your bore friend, your bore bae, your bore cuz, your bore sib, your bore bestie, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just here to be at your bedside, while you fall asleep. That's it. Take your mind off of stuff. So that's two things to know. The other thing that can throw new listeners off is the structure of the show. The show is very different, and that can mix people up. So let me tell you about the structure of the show. Show starts off with a few minutes of business. That's how we keep it. Starts off with a greeting. Then we do the business. That's how we're able to bring the podcast for free twice a week. Then there's an intro, and the intro also can throw people off because it's me talking for about 12 to 20 minutes about what the podcast is. So I'm kind of, I say, well, I try to get to the point and explain what the podcast is, and then I go off on tangents or get mixed up. And I wish I was totally 100% on purpose. I do say that sometimes, totally intentional. Every meander is a well-planned meander, but that is just not the truth. Like sometimes, you just got to do a little bumbling, some natural bumbling. What was my point? Oh, so the intro that's one of the reasons why the intro is long, but the main reason the intro is like 12 to 20 minutes long. When you'd say most intro scoots are like 2 or 3 minutes, you tell us what you're going to tell us, say something, then tell us what you're going to tell us again. I'd say, well, I tried to do that, but the whole idea of the intro, so there's a few ways to consume this show once you become a regular listener. At first, just kind of consume it, first probably skeptically or doubtfully. And then after that, you say, well, I'm not so sure about this. And they say, oh, I'm not so sure about this, so I don't have to listen. But as you become a regular listener, there's 2% of listeners who start the show at around 20 minutes, and they just listen to whatever starts at 20 minutes. It might be the end of the intro, might be some business, might be this where we talk about tonight, we're talking about an episode of Doctor Who or a holiday special. So you could see after you become a regular listener, oh, that's what works best for me. But most listeners, they listen to the intro as part of their wind down. And some of them start it before they get into bed. Some of them start it as part of their bedtime routine, whether they're journaling or knitting or cross-stitching or doodling or petting pets or brushing their hair, whatever they're stretching, just sitting and staring. That's one of my hobbies, out the window or at a wall or at the ceiling. I do really like, and this is something I just got back into. You say, Scooch, what else do you do for fun? And I'd forgotten this one. I do like to look at look at things from upside down. I like to get into a position where I can look at and pretend that the ceiling's the floor. And if you haven't done that in a while, I highly suggest it. I mean, make sure you do it, in a safe and comfortable way. But talk about it. I say, how did I forget how, then you pretend you imagine you're walking around your apartment and it's upside down. I love doing that. So those are all reasons the intro's around 12 to 20 minutes to kind of give you time to unwind and ease into bedtime. So then there'll be some business. Then I'll talk about an episode of Doctor Who from series 3, the second series with David Tennant. This one will be the special before the season started. And if you've never seen Doctor Who or you have strong feelings about it, don't worry. This will be very meandering. Everything will be told in a bedtime story way. So I'll take plenty of long turns around anything that you say, well, I'm not so sure about that. Because when I was a kid, I wasn't so sure about the original Doctor Who series. I'd say, oh, boy. But now I've grown to love it and the performances. So we'll have some fun. So we'll talk about that for about 40, 45 minutes. And there's some thank yous at the end of the show. So that's the structure of the show. And the kind of two pieces of code you could follow. Don't really need to listen to me or just barely listen. Don't take me seriously. And no pressure to fall asleep. The reason the shows are about an hour is I want to give you plenty of time to drift off. So I'm here to keep you company as you drift off instead of putting you to sleep. But then if you can't sleep, I'm here. Or if you need a break during the day, I'm here. Or if you wake up, as I have been doing, you say, well, here's some scoots. I can just put on scoots and it'll take my mind off of stuff. So that's all the stuff around the structure of the show. The reason I make the show is because I've been there. I know how it feels in the deep, dark night. I know how it feels, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep. So I know how it feels, and it's not great. And so that's one part of it. But I also truly believe you deserve a good night's sleep and you deserve a safe place to respite. So that's why I make the show, because your world and our world will be a better place if you're rested. So that's really it. I'm really glad you're here. I really appreciate you coming by and checking the show out. I work very hard. I yearn and I strive because I want to help you fall asleep. And here's a couple of ways I'm able to bring you the show for free twice a week. Thanks for coming by. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever is keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, or routine, so things on your mind that you're thinking about, obviously, or things you're feeling emotionally or physically, all of those things it could be, or any or all of those things, whatever is keeping you awake. I'm here to take your mind off of stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents, creating a safe place. I say that, smoothing and patting and rubbing it down. In a safe place that you're invited to, but you don't have to come. That's an invitation I could get behind, that I wouldn't have to get behind or you say, here's a place you're invited. I think I talk about this a lot because it's just one of the things I say, oh boy, now what am I going to, that's going to be a rigmarole when that comes up. This is an invitation. You say, you don't even, how about, here's a party. I'm having a party. I'd love it. You say, I'd love it if you'd come by, but you could also walk by. You could walk, obviously we'll expect it, so we won't be surprised. You could just walk around the house and look in the door. or the window. We won't have a live stream of the party, but we will have a live stream where you could kind of peek in and see, well, it's like it's a virtual party you don't even need to come to. Invitation where you're invited, you say, okay, yeah, I'm not expecting you to be there, not love to have you there, but you don't necessarily have to totally come by. And you say, okay, well, I don't know. I don't understand how that would work logistically. I said, don't worry, we'll figure it out. I want you to be comfortable, whether you're here or not. And if you're new, that's kind of how this podcast works. You say, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I say, well, you're correct. Correct. You're new here and you're already right. And, you've already got a point, unlimited points I'll give you. But you earned a point there, or multiple points. I don't know. We don't really have a point system here. I just wanted to be gracious and say that you're correct. I'm not making a whole lot of sense. And if you're new, expect more of that. Actually, near constant stream of me not making a whole lot of sense, or you say, well, almost makes sense. You're telling me you're working on an imaginary system for a party that I could be in attendance without being in attendance at all. And I'd say, well, a blanket thing. You say, well, I would like to be there. I'd say, well, we'll figure that out. You'd say, well, I'd just like to get credit for going. I don't really want to go. I'd say, okay, we'll figure that one out too. So that is an imaginary product. But if you're new, let me tell you a little bit about the podcast first. To also, before I go back off topic about this invitation and party stuff, one of the more popular things in intros. So if you're new, here's a couple things to know. One, I'm glad you're here, and I really hope I can help you fall asleep. I really believe you do deserve a good night's sleep, and I hope I can provide that for you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this podcast is very different than most shows. So if you're skeptical or doubtful or you're not sure how to feel, that is a very normal reaction to this podcast. And it does not work for everybody. Not everybody likes it. Some of those people still listen, but it doesn't work for everybody either. So it's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, and it may not put you to sleep or take your mind off stuff, but it could. But for the number of listeners we have, most of them said, gave it 2 or 3 tries. And then I became a regular listener. And I said, oh, okay, this podcast does not make it. He was right when he said it doesn't make any sense. I just didn't realize. So at first I thought he was joking. And when he said barely pay attention, I didn't really understand how to do that, because usually if you get, just like he said, if you get an invitation to a party, it's pretty clear that you're either going or you're not going. There's not a lot of gray area within party invitations at this point in history. Heretofore, or whatever we say. I'm hoping to change that, where you say, well, because they say, well, you could put maybe, but then you're still expected to answer that, or assumption is that maybe means probably not. That would be pretty good. Like, what if there was a party, like one of those online invitation things where instead of, like, it was just a spectrum, like a meter, and you say, well, like one way is definitely going, the other way is definitely not going. But most people put it somewhere in the meter. And you could even add a second meter. You say, well, what time do you think you're going to show up? Party's from 12 to 8. You say, well, boy, that's way too, okay, I can't make it at all then. Okay, party's from 1 to 3. Okay, well, boy, now you're talking. 1 to 3. Does that mean there will be lunch? Yeah, there will, like, so, okay, how about 12:30 to 2:30? Okay, we could do that. And then you use the second spectrum to say, okay, I'll probably be there at 1:15. And I'm somewhere on the Roy G. Biv spectrum. I'm like in the IV, the indigo, and not the violet of, like, if that's 100% coming. I'm like pretty close to, in Roy G. Biv, blue indigo. And you say, okay, maybe I'll see you at my party, maybe not. You don't even have to come, though, because we have all those other solutions. Actually, by the way, I thought you were inviting a new listener to the Sleep Podcast. Oh, you're right. Sorry about that, new listener. So this is a podcast that doesn't make a lot of sense. So see if you could consume it loosely. You don't really need to listen, though of course you might want to. But if you do decide to listen, I'll be here. I'm here to keep you company as much as I am to put you to sleep. And that's the other flip side. This is, I say a podcast to put you to sleep. Really, it's a podcast that's here while you fall asleep. There's no pressure for you to fall asleep. I'm going to be here for at least an hour or right around an hour. So you have plenty of time to drift off. You could listen to multiple episodes. And because I'll be here till the very end to keep you company. So if you can't sleep, the episodes are complete. They're just, completely nonsense, but they're not total nonsense. So I'm committed to be here for you, I think. So it's a podcast you don't need to listen to. No pressure to fall asleep either. Another thing that can throw new people off is the structure of the show. So just in case that's throwing you off, I just want to set this up. But though some people it throws a lot of people so off that they're like, oh, this definitely isn't the podcast for me, which may be for the best, It's kind of hard to be in a position of making a podcast where most people have to try it multiple times to know if they're going to start not listening to it. And then the people that definitely are not listening to it, they tend to email me strong-worded messages or emails letting me know in all caps why they don't listen. It's a strange thing, but it's an important mission for me because the reason I make the show is because I've been there and I know how it feels not to be able to fall asleep. So I wish it could work for everybody. And that's why it is important. And I say, geez, you do deserve a good night's sleep because I know how it feels. I know how it feels on most of the things too. Tossing and turning, got that, mind racing. Oh boy. Waking up early, all those things. I've been through them all. But I was going to talk about the structure of the show. So the show starts off with business, and that's how we're able to keep the podcast free for everybody, no paywall or anything, or not part of a larger thing, like an app or whatever that you got to pay for. Then, so that's about somewhere. Usually there's the teaser, which is 1 minute, the friend, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends beyond the binary. Then there's business. I don't know, I tend to ramble during the business, but I try to keep it to 2 or 3 separate things. So the max would be 4 or 5 minutes. But, sometimes I'm not perfect. Probably all the time. All the time I'm not perfect. But so that's the business. Then there's an intro, which is separate from the business, though the people that strongly dislike it kind of tend to lump it all together. But the intro is somewhere around 12 to 18 minutes of me rambling about how the podcast works, introducing the podcast for new listeners, kind of setting it up. And then for regular listeners, they say, oh, this is what Scoots does every episode. He kind of tries to explain the podcast in a different way. Over 850 times, he's tried to explain what the podcast is. Unsuccessfully, because I guess if it was successful, it's success. It's successful in its unsuccessfulness. That's the truth. And so it's new for the new listeners. It's new, but then for the regular listeners, it's familiar but new. But the thing is, for the regular listeners, there's about 2% of regular listeners that skip ahead to 20 minutes. And they kind of maybe catch the second round of business or the start of the whatever we're going to be talking about. Tonight will be kind of a random one-off episode. And then there's people that listen on Patreon and might listen all night, or they listen to story-only episodes or whatever. But most people listen to the intro, and it's part of their wind-down routine. It's one of the pillars. I don't want to brag and say it's a keystone. Yeah, but I hope for a lot of listeners, it's a building block of your bedtime routine where you say, okay, well, I start playing Scoots, then I got some lavender lotion or whatever, or a spritz, or I brush my hair, or I brush my pets, or I stretch, or I sit quietly, I look out the window, whatever it is, part of your wind down routine. Or there's people that start it when they're in bed and they're doing it as part of their later wind down routine where they're like, okay, I'm getting comfortable, getting my pillows where I like them in my blankets and those kind of things. So as you become a regular listener, or if you are, test out, oh, geez, this works pretty good for me. So that's the intro. Then there's some business. Then there's the episode, which will be a bedtime story, about 45 minutes or so. And then there's some thank yous at the end of the show. So that's the structure of the show. And I don't know. I guess, yeah, that's what you need to know. We got the structure of the show. You don't need to listen. No pressure to fall asleep. And, yeah, I mean, it really is an invitation to a wind down. Or, like I say, well, you're kind of inviting me. You're letting me in. But, at a distance where you say, okay, Scoots, you could kind of barely entertain us while we get comfortable and drift off. And I think that's it. I mean, I really appreciate you checking the podcast out. It really means a lot to me to be able to try to help you fall asleep, and hopefully I succeed. And believe it or not, for some people, I work really hard on the show. A lot of work goes into it, not just my hard work, but a lot of work on all levels. Because all of us really yearn to help you, really yearn to help you fall asleep. So thank you again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we're able to keep this podcast here for you whenever you need it. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. It could be thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, or other things going, like whatever's going on. So things you're thinking about, anything emotionally coming up for you, physically you're experiencing. Or it could be something external or just, variable. Like I said in the intro, for me, it is a invariably baffling, but variable what it is. So whatever it is, I'm here to keep you company and take your mind off stuff and put you to sleep via trying to create a safe place that I have set aside here. I forgot how the intro goes already, but trying to create a safe place where you could set aside. All you need to do is get in bed, turn on the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do. So I already said this: create a safe place where you could set aside. So yeah, get back to that safe place. I'm going to smooth it. I'm going to pat it. I'm going to rub it down, and I'm going to say safe place. And then what I'm going to do is send my voice across the deep dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I'm going to go off topic, I'm going to go off topic. That's what pointless meanders kind of are. I'm going to misspeak. I'm going to use fragment words. Fraggle, if there was Fraggle words, I don't know. How many people, I don't think I've talked about the Fraggles in a while. If I have, it hasn't even been in the intro. Fraggle's a good word for a sleep podcast. You say, but the people would say, listeners would say, but none of that Fraggle rock. Maybe put on some Fraggle, some smooth Fraggle. Or some easy Fraggle. I say, no problem. Fraggle easy or easy Fraggle? You see, maybe you should go out. Okay, so I'm going to send my voice, lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, all to take your mind off stuff as you fall asleep. Now, if you're new, a couple things to know off the top. If you're unsure about this show initially, that's perfectly normal. This podcast is very different, so I want to give you some information to try to help you. One is that if you're waiting for this to start or make sense, it's better to consume this podcast very loosely and very out of focus because it doesn't ever start to make sense. You say, when are you going to get to the point? I say, well, that's kind of the point, is I never there's no points in my sleep podcast. There's just, rounds and bends. I try not to, I try to keep, the only thing, I try not to keep it pointy because just in case you're sleeping in a waterbed or in general, you say I'd prefer I'm sure maybe you have a partner that has pointy elbows or ankles or whatever. And you say, I got to deal with that at night, or my dog, and I say, okay, yeah, no points here. So kind of just, if you try to figure out this podcast, you could, but maybe do that during the day. So if you're new, just kind of wait and barely listen. This is the one podcast you barely need to listen to, and you barely have to pay me any mind. So just if you can, see how it goes. Now, I know initially that's asking a lot, and I understand because you say, I'm skeptical, I'm doubtful, I'm not sure how to feel about this because it doesn't sound like a regular podcast. And I say, yeah, you're right about all of those things. And most listeners, literally, I just read a review where someone said I loathed the podcast, and then I listened a year later, and now I'm a regular listener. And that's a pretty common review. So give the show a few tries, see how it goes. Very rarely does it work on the first listen. So that's one thing. The next thing is that, so barely listen. Oh, this is really a podcast to keep you company while you fall asleep and not so much to put you to sleep. I'm here to take your mind off of stuff and be here as you fall asleep. So, yeah, that's one thing or that's the second thing. So this is a podcast you don't need to listen to. Not really here to put you to sleep. I guess that's ironic, but not ironic, but paradoxical. Yeah, more of your boyfriend. Well, more if you're new, applying to be your boyfriend. Or your bore bae, or your bore sib, or your bore cuz, or your bore bestie. And, so that's the next thing to know. If you're a regular listener, I'm so glad you're back and happy that you're here, too. Holy cow. Thank you so much for coming back and giving me your time. So, okay, but for the new listeners, I do want to fill you on a few more things that can throw new listeners off. Other than, creaky dulcet tones, that's another thing. And pointless meanders, like creaky dulcet like a door. That's kind of how my voice sounds, which, again, is something you kind of have to adjust to, because a lot of people expect a sleep podcast to be a little bit more dreamy. And that's not how my Nana describes me. She said, he's not a dreamboat. He's more like a scow. If I had to describe my scooter, say, Nana, can you not call me my scooter? Because that already, I guess that, negates me being a dreamboat anyway. Yeah, he's more of a scow than, and you know what they carry? You know what normally they carry in scows? I say, okay, well, it's I guess I have a lot of utility. Thanks, Nana. Anyway, moving on. I don't know what that had to do with the podcast, but so, so if you're a regular listener, give it a few tries. Okay, structure the show is the other thing that can throw new listeners off strongly and understandably because we're not structured like most podcasts. And again, your natural expectation when you start a sleep podcast or any podcast is different than what this podcast is. Now, I guess that's what makes it work for the people it works for. It just doesn't work for everybody. So I really hope the show works for you. If it doesn't work for you, you could always go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you to check out other sleep podcasts. So, okay, so those are two things. The next thing to know, other than that, structure the show. So show starts off with a greeting. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary. That's so everybody can feel seen and say, hey, welcome, come on in. This is a safe place I'm trying to create. And settle in and get comfortable. Then there's business. That's how we bring you this podcast that takes a lot of work, believe it or not, to produce twice a week for free. So it's a pretty good deal. Is the patrons and the people that support the sponsors, that helps us. So that's that part. Then that throws some people off. But then what happens is after the business, there's 12 to 20 minutes of me just talking in an intro, which is what we're doing right now. And if you're wondering when the podcast is going to start, that can really throw you off. So I do kind of repeat this in a lot of episodes. It's kind of already started, but I'll keep going and explaining that. I mean, the intro serves one purpose. You know what you're getting into for a new listener, but even though, because you say, well, it took you 20 minutes to explain what your sleep podcast is. And I'd say, exactly. So you kind of get an idea of the tone and the sense of humor, like a sense of humor attempts of this podcast. But for a regular listener, the intro serves another purpose, which is, it's familiar. Scoots is here. He's going to keep me company. He's going to try to explain what the podcast is. But it's going to be different every time, because I found personally that every other sleep solution I've tried has hasn't had the variability. I just adjust, or my brain starts to adjust and starts thinking more. So that's why the intro's different every time. Otherwise, I could just use one of the 800 intros I've already done, or whatever, 900. I don't even know how many it's been. So those are two things to know. But the other thing is, for regular listeners, the intro is part of their wind down routine. So either they're getting ready for bed, or they're in bed getting comfortable, and maybe they're doing some sort of other wind down activity, or they're just in bed letting the day drift away and getting some distance. And because, again, like I said with other sleep solutions, one, I found I adjust to them. The other thing is, they're not, I don't know, it takes a while for us to get to sleep and get comfortable. It's just a reality for us. I mean, for the person next to you that's snoring, possibly, they just seem to their head hits a pillow, but we're a little bit different. And that's okay. And that's what I'm here for. So that's the other thing is as you become a regular listener, you could say, I like to start the podcast as I brush my teeth, or, I like to do it as I'm petting my pets, or, whatever it is. Just maybe you build a house of cards before bed, and maybe do it in your bed. I don't know. Maybe you also listen to podcasts and play something else like pink noise or Fraggle. Maybe you do Fraggle classical Fraggle. So that's, I'll try to go back to the Fraggles. So that's the intro of the show. And some listeners, about 2% of listeners, skip ahead to 20 minutes and listen there. Or some people are patrons. They listen to story-only episodes or all-night episodes. And believe it or not, a lot of patrons and even people listen to all intros. And some listeners listen to the intros during the day to help them unwind and focus. So if you're new or you're a regular listener, you could try something new out too, but just see how it goes. So after the intro is business, that's part of podcast structure, and then there's a story. Tonight it'll be our episodically modular, slightly serialized story, Otter Things, OTTERTHINGS, with our heroine Emma Otter. Or our narrator, one of the heroines in the story, Emma Otter. So that'll be the story. Then there's some thank yous at the end. So that's the structure of the show. And a couple other things. The reason I make the show is because I've been there. I know how it feels in the deep, dark night, or the wee hours of the morning, or weeing in the hours of the night in the morning and saying I got to get up, drank too much before bedtime. So whatever it is, I've been there, and I just want to make bedtime less of a rigmarole, take a little bit of the stress, drain that balloon. And if I can't make bedtime something for you to look forward to, at least I can remove part of that dread that I experience a lot of times. And then actually my bedtime routine helps to counteract and soothe that part of me and say, okay, well, at least I enjoy these things about bedtime. So that's one reason I make the show. The other reason I make the show is you deserve a good night's sleep. That's what I just believe that. And I believe that if you get a good night's sleep, your life will be a little bit better, and you'll be in a position maybe to do other things and be rested. So If I can help provide that, that's my honor. So that's why I make the show. And also I make the show if you can't sleep. But this is another thing I like. If you can't sleep at all, the podcast goes from the beginning to the end. This story tonight it's a story you don't need to listen to, but you could listen to it if you can't sleep. If you just need some company in the deep, dark night. So, yeah, I just want you to... So I'm also here to keep you company if you can't sleep. So those are the reasons I make the show. And yeah, some of you may be saying, what's a Fraggle? And I'd say, I don't really know. Like, it's interesting because this is Otter Things, which one of the influences for this was Emmett Otter, Jim Henson, and Henson Studios and everything. The Fraggles were also made by Henson Studios. And the Fraggles were like another set of Muppets. They lived underground with some dozers. And this is as far as it goes. There was even though I watched the show a lot, it was on HBO in the 80s. I really don't remember anything else about it. I'm not kidding. I guess I remember kind of feeling ambivalent about it sometimes. So I don't know. I guess that doesn't really help anybody, but that's just like, but Fraggles were I don't know what Fraggle Rock was. I don't know if that's where they lived because they lived in a rock, underground rock area. And the dozers were always building stuff. I think the Fraggles were like to eat it or somebody else liked to eat it. But they kind of went along with the podcast because they said, can't you get away? Worries for another day. Let the music play down at Fraggle Rock. So down at Fraggle Rock. So it was where they lived. But maybe one day someone said, can you turn that Fraggle Rock down? You see, no problem. I'm putting on the frag, what do they call it now? There's easy listening. There's another one though, right? There's I don't know. I'd prefer Fraggle Smooth. Sure, I'm going to put on some Fraggle Smooth. So that's it. That's why I'm like, I don't know. I think that's all. Like, I tried to explain what those are the Fraggles in a nutshell, from a nutshell, where my brain lives. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. That's the main message I want to get across. Give the show a few tries. You deserve a good night's sleep. So give the podcast a couple tries, see how it goes. I hope it works for you. Like I said, it doesn't work for everybody. But I work very hard on the show. I really yearn and strive, and I really want to help you fall asleep. Thank you again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we were able to bring this podcast twice a week. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots just tucking you in and wanted to let you know about our referral program. It's a great way to support the show just by doing what you already do, spreading the word about the show. You could sign up at sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer, REFER. And you sign up, you get your own link to share on social media or by email, wherever you share about the podcast. And then the people that check out the podcast in a podcast app, you get credit for that. And you can earn credit on something that's just about to launch, Sleep With Me Plus. And you could earn 3 months of free Sleep With Me Plus or 6 months of free Sleep With Me Plus or more, just by referring people to the show. So if you're not in a position to support the show directly, but you really want to be a part of the show, or you say, I really want to listen to the bonus content or the ad-free episodes or the story-only episodes, sign up at sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer and start referring people to the show. And kind of the best way to do it is just like if you're sharing on social media, for example, don't spam because that doesn't work. You can see it in the stats. But what works, because we have a few people that have already gotten 3 months or 6 months. One person already got 6 months in about 10 days. And all you need to do is like share about your honest experience with the podcast. It does take sharing 2 or 3 times, maybe even 4 times over a week or 2 weeks period. You just share about your favorite episodes. What does the podcast do for you? What do you like about the podcast? How did you discover it? Where do you listen? And on top of that, I'll thank you because I really appreciate it. The most powerful way for people to find Sleep With Me and for Sleep With Me to help them is by word of mouth, by you saying, hey, this podcast actually works for me. I know it's a little bit different. maybe you do need to give it a few tries. But this podcast has changed my life or had a really positive impact on my life or helps me fall asleep. And then you can do that for another person out there. Maybe it's somebody you know. Maybe it's somebody in your life you didn't even know they were struggling with sleep. Or maybe it's someone you haven't met before. But I know they'll appreciate it too. So sign up right now and get in there before we launch Sleep With Me Plus at sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer, REFER. Thanks, everybody.